Gopi Jana Vela Bhagi Varadhari Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prabhajakacharya Sūta Satta Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Kori Vaishnava Vrinda Ki ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Srimad Bhagavatam Gantaraja Ki. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga, Gaur Premananda. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Durgame Pati Mendasya Skalatkatir Muhu Swakripayustu Danena Shantu Shantu Avalambanam. So today, with the blessings of all the assembled Vaishnavas, I would like to just read the shloka and the purport and then sing as only 3 days before Krishna's appearance. Yes, that's right, only 3 days. So we would like to start setting the scene for the coming of Krishna's the most incredible event in the history of the universe, Krishna's Janmashtami. So we are reading from Canto 1, and we're starting a new chapter, chapter 19, and this is entitled The Appearance of Sukadeva Gosvāmī. So repeat after me. Sutta uvāca, mahī-patis, tu atha, tat-karma, garhyam, vicintayann, ātma-kṛtaṁ, sudurmanāḥ, aho, mayā, nīcam, anārya-vat, ātma-kṛtaṁ, nirāgasi, brahmaṇi, gūḍha-tejasi, sutta uvāca, mahī-patis tat-karma garhyam, vicintayann ātma-kṛtaṁ sudurmanāḥ, aho mayam nīcam anārya-vat nirāgasi brahmaṇi gūḍha-tejasi, mahī-patis tat-karma garhyam, vicintayann ātma-kṛtaṁ sudurmanāḥ, aho mayā nīcam anārya-vat nirāgasi brahmaṇi gūḍha-tejasi, mahī-patis tat-karma garhyam, vicintayann ātma-kṛtaṁ sudurmanāḥ, aho mayā nīcam anārya-vat nirāgasi brahmaṇi gūḍha-tejasi, Vaishnava. Sutta uvāca. Sūta Gosvāmī said, mahī-patiḥ, the king, too, but atha, thus while coming back home, tat, that, karma, act, garhyam, abominable, vicintayann, thus thinking, ātma-kṛtam, done by himself, sudurmanāḥ, very much depressed, aho, alas, mayā, by me, nīcam, heinous, anārya, uncivilized, vat, like, kṛtam, done, nirāgasi, unto one who is faultless, brahmaṇi, unto the brahmaṇa, gūḍha, grave, tejasi, unto the powerful. Translation. Śrī Sūta Gosvāmī said, while returning home, the king Mahārāja Parīkṣit felt that the act he had committed against the faultless and the powerful brahmaṇa was heinous and uncivilized. Consequently, he was distressed. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The pious king regretted his accidental improper treatment of powerful brahmaṇa, who was faultless. Such repentance is natural for a good man like the king, and such repentance delivers a devotee from all kinds of sins accidentally committed. The devotees are naturally faultless. Accidental sins committed by a devotee are sincerely regretted, and by the grace of the Lord, all sins unwillingly committed by a devotee are burnt in the fire of repentance. So, I would like to initiate the procedure on the advent of Lord Krishna and speak a little bit about that. So I want to give a summary situation of how the stage was set for the coming of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So first of all, I would like to just delve in a few basics just to emphasize the rarity and the magnitude of the event of the appearance of Krishna's of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So this is a little bit of basic for all you Vedic cosmologists out there, but I would still like to discuss this and just very quickly put the time frame into perspective. First of all, we have to understand Vedic cosmology. We have to understand that the Vedas give us all this science from this magnificent Jyoti of Veda. We have such a big time span. The modern historians of the Western civilization, they can take us back to maybe 2,000 or 3,000 years, and then they run out of data. It becomes very, very blurred. So 2,000 or 3,000 years, according to Vedic times, it's nothing. It's just a little bit of Kali Yuga that we've gone through. So the knowledge of the universe has been given to us in disciplic succession, handed down since the beginning of creation. So we all know, we'll go through this, that Lord Brahma's day, it consists of 1,000 cycles of yugas. Or if you like to say in Earth years, 8,640,000,000,000 years. Say it quickly, it doesn't mean much, but there's a lot of noughts involved in that. So this one day of Lord Brahma, this 8 billion so forth thousand years, it's divided into 14. There are 14 manvantars, right? So each of these manvantars lived for the duration of how many yugas? Quickly, 71. Yeah, 71 yugas. And so with these manvantars, it's just like a post, and the demigods have a post, like King Indra, Yamaraj, maybe other demigods. They all occupy a post for 71 yugas, and then there is a change, right? 14 manvatars seen one day of Lord Brahma. So, in this particular day of Lord Brahma, we are up to the 7th manvatar, who is Vaivasvata Manu, right? Formerly known as Satyavrata Muni, who was saved by Macha. So we are in the 28th cycle. What does that mean? 28th cycle means that there's been 28 cycles of yugas in this Manvantara, so there's out of his 71 yugas. And he is the 7th Manvantara. So if you want to, I just read it in the purport of the Srimad Bhagavatam, if you want to put it into perspective, that this is Lord Brahma's morning coming into midday, about 11:40 in the morning or something. It's coming into Lord Brahma's midday. And of course, Lord Brahma lives 100 years. He said he's just over the middle of his life. So in this particular yuga, cycle of yugas, in the 28th cycle of the 7th Manu, in the 7th Manu, we have two very, very extraordinary events which only happen in one day of Lord Brahma, as I said. Two extraordinary events, and that's not including the symptoms of those extraordinary events, is that Satya Yuga overlaps Treta Yuga. You all know that? Now, I didn't really understand that fully for 40 years, so pardon me, I'll explain it to you if you might not have understood it too, but you might have. I always thought that overlapping meant that actually it wasn't Treta Yuga, it's Treta and Dwapara Yuga, isn't it? Sorry. So I always thought that actually Treta Yuga came third and Dwapara Yuga came second, and I was totally confused as to when Krishna came. I thought that was overlapping. But actually overlapping meant that just like you have the waves of an ocean at a full tide, then they cover the sand and they come back again. So Treta Yuga overlapped a portion of Dwapara Yuga. So everybody knew that, right? You all knew that? Yep. I'm not the only one. Well, that's very good, thank you. So in this particular event in Dwapara Yuga, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, he advents, just coming towards the end of Dwapara Yuga, and as we know, at the start of Kali Yuga, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advents. Two incredible incarnations of the Supreme Personality of God himself, just once in a day of Lord Brahma. So this is a rarity, and also it's described in the Bhagavad Gita. Paritranaya sadanam vinasyacha duskritam dharma samstapanataye sambhavami yuge yuge. That whenever there is a rise in irreligion, whenever there's a rise of irreligion, I descend myself to re-establish, annihilate the miscreants, vinasya chaduskritam, and to re-establish religious principles. So this was particularly pertinent in the time just before Krishna came to this planet. Of course, that prediction didn't give very much comfort to all the poor people who were who were being harassed by these demoniac kings. It's said in the Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada's Krishna book, in the first paragraph, Srila Prabhupada explains that there were so many kings with their posing as the royal order, but they were actually demons, and they had their huge battalions of millions and millions of soldiers. And we know that when a king has so many soldiers, he has to provide for his soldiers, so therefore they harass all the innocent citizens, tax them and overburden them. And in this way they were plundering and harassing everybody, and it was very disturbing. We read about these heavy kings, these mighty kings in the Krishna book that Krishna had to sort out. We read about Narakasura. How big was that demon, that he had a benediction from the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, Viraha. I believe that he'd be undefeated. and he was situated in a big fortress up on top of a mountain there. Had moats with crocodiles and sharks in it, maybe a few timangilla fish, I'm not quite sure, a few makaras. And then he had all these electric fences that he had electricity, barbed wire fences surrounding there, and then all these 5-headed demons, Mukara, guarding his fortress. And that's where he kept his princesses, kidnapped his princesses, the 16,100 princesses he kept in that castle. Then we had Salva, that big demon who got the benediction from Lord Shiva that he got this spaceship which is like a small city, and he could fly anywhere. It was like this huge armoured carrier, and he could fly at the speed of the mind. So one time his city would appear here, and then his city would appear there, just like that. And then so many other demoniac kings that we can go through: Sisupal, Dantavakra, Salya, Pundarik, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, the biggest of them all was Jarasandha. He had massive armies, huge armies, and Jarasandha was so powerful, strength of 10,000 elephants. And he also had imprisoned 990 kings, I believe. I think it was that many, from all the different provinces, and they were all wasting away. And he was just needing a few more just to get to that number where he could sacrifice them all to the goddess Durga. It was Jarasandha. So then, on top of that, we had, because Jarasandha was so powerful, we had this demon called Kamsa, who actually made a pact with Jarasandha because he married two of Jarasandha's daughters. So under Jarasandha's jurisdiction, he could also wreak havoc, and he was very, very powerful indeed. In fact, he had been the demon Kalanemi in his previous incarnation, and who knows who Kalanemi was the son of? This is fearsome. Anybody? Say loud. Hiranyakasipu. How bad is that? Just people still tremble at the name of Hiranyakasipu. So, a very, very powerful demon. So then Kamsa, he went around wreaking havoc, and he first of all took charge of the kingdom. He threw his father, his name was Ugrasena, in jail, and then he took over the kingdom of Mathura. Actually, Mathura belonged to the others, but it was being shared by the Bhoja dynasty and the Vrishnis. So Kamsa, he threw Ugrasena in jail, and he began to harass all the citizens of Mathura, because at one point in time, Narad Muni had come up to him and he said, "Did you know that you were Kalanemi in your last life, and you fought on the side of the Asuras, the demons, and you fought with Lord Vishnu, and Lord Vishnu killed you twice." And so therefore, of course, Kamsa was the enemy, all the demons are the enemy of Lord Vishnu and his devotees, and he knew that the Yadu dynasty were the devotees of Lord Vishnu, so he would harass them severely. And while he was in the process of ruling his kingdom, he went around and he found all these great demons, and he would subjugate the demons and make them his own. He would put them in his stable, as you would say. Yeah, this is his stable. So he would go around and he'd meet some demon like Narakasura. Oh no, hang on, like Banasura. So we talk about Narakasura, like Banasura with his thousands of arms, and he would. Was it Banasura? I'm not sure. I won't. Banasura. let's start with Trinivata. It's nice and easy. So we'd meet some demon, like powerful mystic demon. It could change his shape. We call them shapeshifters, mystic yogis. And he would say to them, hey, if I wrestle with you and you beat me, I'll become your slave. But if you wrestle with me and I beat you, you become my slave. And the demon goes, yeah, sure, let's do it. And he was so powerful that he beat all these demons. He'd beat and he had a whole collection of them. He had Trinivata, Dhenuka, Arista, Baka, Keshi, all these names familiar, Pralamba, Chanura, and Mustika, and Putana, who was the sister. I forget whose sister she was, but he wouldn't fight her, but he fought a brother, and therefore because he beat a brother, she was subjugated also. So he kept them. And all these great demons, they were flesh eaters and cannibals, and they hated the Vaishnavas, so they were roaming around Mathura. So how would you feel being a citizen of Mathura with all these people around the place? So he kept them there. So at that point in time, the others were really afflicted severely. So what did they do? Some of them, they fled to other provinces. Some went to the province of the Kurus. Some of Vasudev's wives, including Rohini, fled to the province of Gokul, and they took shelter of Nanda Maharaj and Yasoda. And others, they surrendered unto Lord Kamsa and thought that they'd wait it out. One such person who surrendered to Lord Kamsa, who was very, very famous. Anybody know who that was? Very prominent in Krishna Leela? Akrura. Yes, Akrura. He stayed with Kamsa just to wait it out and see what was going to happen. And of course he had a very, very prominent role where Kamsa summoned him to fetch Krishna. And because he had to take Krishna away from Vrindavan, the gopis were very, very upset by this. They chastised Akrura severely. So he was not very popular with the gopis of Vrindavan, or the other cowherd boys, or all the citizens. But he explained to Krishna this had to be done because it was time for Krishna to actually address the fact that Kamsa was such a demon that he imprisoned his father and his mother, and he had to be stopped. So all these demons were there. So when at one point in time, when Vasudeva, who was from a Yadu king, and he married Kamsa's sister Devaki. So one time, that point in time, the citizens of Mathura thought that this could be peaceful. We have some peace at last, that the Yadu dynasty is marrying into the Bhoja dynasty, and hopefully some sort of peacefulness would come about in our city. But as we know, that was short-lived also, because there was a great voice in the sky on that wedding day when Kamsa was driving the chariot carrying Devaki and Vasudeva. The voice in the sky said, "You fool, Kamsa! Do you realize that the 8th son of Devaki is going to kill you?" So that was the end. So Kamsa, once he was convinced not to kill Devaki, he threw her into prison. So this was the situation, proliferation of demons. So in the meantime, the personification of a personified deity of the earth, who was Bhumi, she was so aggrieved to see all this happening. So she went to Lord Brahma and prayed to Lord Brahma, please do something to re-establish some order back on my planet. So Lord Brahma, he saw the situation, so he went to Lord Vishnu in Shweta-dvīpa. And so Lord Brahma and all the demigods, they were praying to Lord Vishnu in Shweta-dvīpa, please restore the conditions back to normal. On the Earth planet, there's just a proliferation of demons there, and it's out of control. So then, after some meditation, Lord Vishnu spoke to Lord Brahma, and he explained to him that he was going to descend from the supreme abode of Vrindavan and come down, take birth in Mathura, and that the demigods, all the demigods that were around there, should assist him in his pastimes and take birth in Mathura along with him, and then peace will be re-established back on the planet. So the call went out throughout the universe. Krishna is coming. Krishna is coming. All you who want to participate in Krishna's pastimes, or are scheduled to participate in Krishna's pastime. It might have been like a ticket, right? We all have a ticket. So all you guys who've got a ticket to come, now's the time for you to come to that big stage, the stage you're in, and take your place, right? Of course, we know that there were so many demigods that had attraction towards different incarnations of Lord Vishnu, such as the sages of Dandakaranya forest, and they wanted to express their love for Lord Rama in a more intimate way than just awe and reverence. But Lord Rama said, no, well, this is not possible. I'm just a Raja Rishi, I'm married to Lakshmi Dev, but you wait until my next incarnation as Lord Krishna, and then you can participate in these pastimes. So for a period of about 2 million years, they were waiting somewhere in the universe. And also there were so many other different sections of devotees who become attracted to different incarnations of Lord Krishna. So the call went out. And so Srila Prabhupada explains in the 10th canto, first chapter, verses 12 and 13, chapter 1, verse 62 to 63. I just have it here. I just quickly use my technology here. Says Srila Prabhupada, this is sloka. The inhabitants of Vrindavan, headed by Nanda Maharaj, and including his associates of coward men and their wives, were none but the denizens of heavenly planets. O Mahārāja Parīkṣit, best of the descendants of Bharat, and so too were the descendants of the Vrishni dynasty headed by Vasudeva and Devaki, and the other women in the dynasty of Yadu, the friends, relatives and well-wishers of both Nanda Maharaj and Vasudeva, and even those who externally appeared to be followers of Kamsa, were all demigods. So the whole scene was set that all the demigods had come, and we know that some of the citizens of in Ayodhya that worship Lord Ram, they also appeared in Mathura, and this way the area of Mathura and Vrindavan, greater Vrindavan, that was Vrajadam, was being filled by great pious souls who were ready to serve Krishna and assist in his pastimes. Similarly, at the same time, Krishna being all-knowing, he also made plans to come, so he'd ask his close associates like Balaram if he could come, and other Nitya Siddhas, and of course his parents were already there, Nanda and Yasoda, they were there, and Vasudeva and Devaki were great performed great austerities in their past lives. And then he asked Srimati Radharani if she could come. So Srimati Radharani said, I'm not going unless Govardhan comes and the Yamuna river comes. Otherwise it's no deal. Right? So we know that when Lord Vamanadev, he stretched his big toe out and he cracked the shell of the universe, and then that enabled the causal ocean to enter, and then the causal ocean became Ganga, sacred Ganga river, and at the same time the Yamuna entered also, and they wended their way down throughout the universe, throughout all the planetary systems, until they came to Mount Meru. And then when they splashed on Mount Meru, they took different courses, and then of course the Gangotri, that the Ganga comes in through that way and the Yamuna comes in through a different way and flows through Vrindavan. So the Ganga was there, and Govardhan appeared. It is said that Govardhan was in the island of Salma-dweep. Now, some people say that Salma-dweep is in one of the 8 tracts of land around Jambudweep, but there is Salma-dweep, which is one of the islands on the around all the oceans, the flat earth, and it's in between the sugarcane ocean and the liquor ocean. So Pulasta Muni was flying past there, and he saw this beautiful mountain, this young mountain just been born, sprung up, and had beautiful trees, grasses, pastures, caves, everything a yogi, a sage could desire. Lots of fruits, and he looked wonderful. And he said, I come from Kasi. He spoke to Govardhan. In those days, mountains, they could do things. They could fly. Right? They wanted. And he said to Govardhan, please come with me to Kasi, because Kasi is really boring. It's so flat, there's nothing there. So it would be so nice if you came and the sages could take shelter of you. And Govardhan, he really didn't want to leave, but because it was a sage, great sage, he didn't want to break the curse. And Govardhan's father, we won't go into that, but Govardhan said, but yeah, if I come with you, I'm huge. In fact, it is stated at that point in time that Govardhan was 64 miles long, 40 miles wide, and 16 miles high. So he said, how are you going to carry me? Pulasta Muni said, look, don't worry about that. I have great power, and I will carry you on the palm of my hand. 5 million miles. Salma-dweep's about 5 million miles from the Bharatvash tract. So Govardhan said, okay, if you're going to do that, I'll just make one condition. And what condition was that? If you put me down, that's where I'll stay. Okay? So Devasa Muni started, Pulasta Muni started off, and then as they come onto the earth planet and they went past Vrindavan, we know that this was Govardhan's destination anyway. He wanted to come to Vrindavan. He wanted to have Krishna's lotus feet on his pastures and the gopis, and he was eagerly waiting to have that reciprocation. Instead, Pulasta Muni was going to take him to Kasi, and in Kasi there was only 2 words that you hear all the time, starting with M: moksha and mukti. That's all they spoke about. There was no pastimes of Krishna. So Govardhan had no desire to go there. So somehow or rather he created this urge in Pulasta Muni where he just had to relieve himself. No matter what he tried to do, he had to stop and relieve himself. So he did that. So he had to put Govardhan down. And then when he finished, he went to pick up Govardhan, and Govardhan wouldn't budge. And he pleaded with him, said, please come, you promised you'd come to Kazi. But he said, you said, once you put me down, that was it. So Palasta Muni became very, very angry. And he said, all right, then I curse you to shrink at the size of one mustard seed every day. So some say that this event occurred 40,000 years ago. So by the time Krishna had arrived, Govardhan was a decent size and Krishna could climb all over him. Now 5,000 years later, when we see Govardhan, well, we can see the top of the hill, we can't climb over him, but he's not more than, 100 or 200 feet high, really. And he's, 22 kilometres, 14 miles now long, only about 400 yards wide, and so it's said that within 10,000 years of Kali Yuga, that he's going to disappear altogether, and so's the Yamuna River. So it's just predictions made. But at this point in time, Govardhan also made an appearance. Then Krishna, he summoned Yogamaya, and then he asked Yogamaya if she could go to Vrindavan and just facilitate his pastimes, create all these wonderful forests and paths, and just make all the different arrangements. He also asked if she could transfer his brother Balaram from the womb of Devaki into the womb of Rohini and prepare the womb for his entrance. So she agreed to do that, and he said to her that when you come to this earth, you will also take birth in the womb of Yasoda Mai, and you will be transferred, you will be swapped for me. And then people will worship you in your very, very many different forms as Durga, Chandika, Mahakali, and Uma, Bhavani. All these names, so you will be worshipped, and they will want to get all these material benedictions from you, and so you will be known as you will be Mahamaya. So Yogamaya, she agreed to do that. Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport here that you have the Shaktis that worship the Mahamaya form in Durga, and they're always in conflict with the Vaishnavas who are worshipping Yogamaya in the form as a Vaishnava servant of Krishna. So there was always that conflict between the materialist and the spiritualist. So Yogamaya's job is also to make the devotees forget that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and just to associate with him as a friend in so many different rasas, where they see him as a personal associate of theirs, and in this way they can facilitate their service to him on this very, very deep, intense, loving platform. So to do that, she obeyed Krishna, and then she made her way to Vrindavan to prepare for that. So when that stage was fully set, then Balaram was born. He came into the womb of Devaki, and then it seemed like she had a miscarriage. So people were lamenting, but actually the sages knew that Balaram had been transferred to the womb of Rohini in Vrindavan, in Gokul, and he was safe. So at that point in time, it was time for Krishna to enter into this universe and begin his pastimes. So he entered into the mind of Vasudeva, and all of a sudden Vasudeva began to shine, he began to glow he was illuminating. He was so bright you could hardly see him. He was in prison, but this is what was going on. And then at some point in time, Vasudeva transferred Krishna into the mind of Devaki. And then Devaki began to glow, and the whole prison began to glow. And then when the time was right, Krishna transferred himself from the mind of the Devaki into the womb, into her womb, ready to take birth. So at that point in time, Kamsa, he could see that glowing effulgence of Devaki, and he knew that Krishna had come in the womb of Devaki. But understanding Vedic injunctions, he realized that if he tried to do something and kill the baby in the womb, kill the mother, kill the baby in the womb, he would lose all his tejas, all his powers, all his reputation. He would lose everything. So therefore he was unable to do that. So he just had to wait. He had to wait till Krishna would be born, and he was going to kill him. But actually it was fruitless. His effort, it was futile in thinking that, because it's already predicted that the 8th child was going to kill him. So how was he going to kill the 8th child in the womb? How was he going to get to it? So even though it was hope against hope, all he could do was think about Krishna day and night. He couldn't think about anything else. It was sort of like what Krishna consciousness in reverse, right? Same effect, but it's in reverse, right? Sometimes we have the demons are out there to get the Hare Krishnas. This is a bit of a squirrel here, but I know when I was in Melbourne, we used to sell books in Melbourne City, and we had a parking bylaws officer who we nicknamed Square Jaw. And Square Jaw, he could come from anywhere. We'd be selling books, and all of a sudden he would appear and try to arrest you and give you a fine. So it was going on for years and years and years. We were running away fighting Square Jaw. We actually came to a horrible end. He somehow or other come up to the devotees one day and said, "Oh, I just broke my legs and I got in an accident, I was dinged up," and he was finished. So I don't know if Krishna took care of him, but he was always thinking about the devotees, though, always. So sometimes the demons are like that here. So anyway, while he waited, all he could think of was Krishna. There was no peace, awake or asleep. So Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport here that there's always demons and there's always devotees, the Shuras and the Asuras. And with the Krishna, with Supreme Lord Sri Krishna being on the side of the devotees are always going to prevail. So sometimes our situation looks very bleak, that we are overcome by the demoniac forces in this Kali Yuga today. But ultimately, if we actually shine and we have Krishna on in our heart, then always the devotees are going to prevail. The example is just like the sun dissipates the monsoon clouds. You see these dark monsoon clouds, right? You think there's no hope. We're going to become inundated all day, have to stay indoors. And all of a sudden the sun breaks through and all the clouds are gone. Krishna's like the sun. So also there are Sri Raghunath Maharaj was explaining this. It's a very nice point that there are two viewpoints in life. There's a viewpoint of the spiritualist devotee and there's a viewpoint of the materialist. And Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that what is daytime for the spiritualist is nighttime. And what is nighttime for the materialist is daytime. What is daytime for the materialist is like nighttime for the introspective sage. So we're travelling on two different paths like that in the same world. Even though everything is the same, we still see that the materialist is covered over by the material energy, and he has no good qualities in his heart. Potentially Krishna is in his heart, but he's so covered over by the material energy. So the devotee, because he's always carrying Krishna within his heart, he therefore, his good qualities are shining through no matter what or where the devotee is. Just like Devaki was in prison, and yet the whole prison shone. The demigods were going to see Devaki. They were visiting her. The prison was almost like the spiritual world. Some of us devotees have also experienced prisons too in the course of our Sankirtan activities, where we go there, and sometimes that actually the devotee really shines through in the prison, and his spiritual spirit purifies the prison. That get the prisoners chanting, they're attracted to the qualities of devotee, because the devotee can shine through anywhere. So prisons become a spiritual place. Not really. So always we should endeavour to remember Krishna, carrying him in our heart, and then the material energy can't touch us. So now we are rushing into this great event where Krishna's going to take birth, and is going to commemorate that occasion on his day of his birth. As devotees, we fast all day to glorify Krishna and to do more service, because it's a fantastic day to make so much advancement. Whereas the karmis, if they have the appearance day of their acharya or their spiritual leader, they usually feast all day. So we fast all day. So this is the lead up into the next 2 or 3 days. So thank you very much. Jai, all glories. I have a few minutes. Are there any questions or comments that you like? Corrections? This lady over here.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So I have a question. When you were talking about how Kamsa could not kill Krishna when he was in the womb of Devaki, because he will lost all the power. So why is so? Because if it's because of the sin, even killing the newborn baby is also very sinful.
Maybe talk a bit slower. I'm from I'm from the Antipodes, so we talk very slowly there. Maybe you could just speak a little bit slower so I can understand. I'm sorry.
So you said that Kamsa could not kill Devaki when when Krishna was there, because he will lost all the power, all his power. So why is so? Because if it's because of the sinful activity, even killing the newborn baby is also sinful activity.
Can I? Yeah, yes.
But killing a newborn baby is also a sinful activity.
Sorry?
Killing a newborn baby just born, that is also sinful.
Yeah.
So that Kamsa would have lost his powers also.
Yeah, well, that was because even the great demons in those days, they all followed the Vedic injunctions. Doesn't matter what they did, they just didn't like the brahmanas, and they might have harassed the devotees of Vishnu, but some harassed the devotees of Vishnu, but they respected the brahmanas, like Bali Maharaj, for instance. So also Kamsa, he was mindful, and he was very philosophical also. So when he was going to kill Devaki just on that wedding day, Vasudeva spoke great philosophy to him. Although it didn't make much sense, but then he gave him a bribe. He said to him, well, I'll take all the babies so you can have a look, and then if you want, you can do what you like. So he needed to make that bribe. So he said, okay, but then he spoke very philosophical words about that. So Kamsa was very attuned to this. So we can't compare him to the age of Kali, what people are doing rampantly there. They have no knowledge of anything, and they have no direction. It's just like Prabhupada says, they're a misguided civilization. So, is that okay? Thank you. It's Prabhu over here.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. My query is that this Juga is 28th Chaturjuga of Vivoshat Manu, 7th Manu. So, in this Juga, we see that first comes Treta, Satta, then Treta, then Dwapar, then Kali. So, this is the sequence of Juga. First is the Satta, then Treta, then Dwapar, then Kali, and Kali is going on. So this is the very special, as you mentioned, that this is a very special 28th Chaturjuga of 7th Manvantar, Vivoshat Manvantar. So my query is that in previous Jugas, Chaturjugas, like 26th or 27th or 28th, so is there any change of the sequence? Like first come Kali, then Dwapar? So my query is that.
No, it's always, that's how always is such a Treta, Dwapar and Kali. So there is an overlapping in this particular, the 28th, there is an overlapping that Treta Yuga goes on for longer and then it overlaps Dwapar. So it's said that actually I've read that both qualities are there. Just like in Satyuga is the quality of goodness, pure goodness, that in Treta Yuga, the mode of passion begins to appear. There's goodness and passion. And then in Dwapar Yuga, there's passion and ignorance and goodness. And then Kali Yuga is basically steeped in ignorance. So, therefore, when the overlapping occurs from Dwapar Yuga, there's like a goodness and some passion, but then the ignorance comes in. So that is always there, but predominantly it's still the mode of goodness, and a little bit of passion is still there in the overlapping. So that's how it occurs. So is that how?
Prabhuji, my question is different. My question is that, is there any change of the sequence of the Juga in this 28th?
No, just like we have summer, winter, autumn. It's just there all the time, no change.
So this is the same sequence in the previous Jugas?
It's set,
like
yes.
Satta, Treta, Dwapar and Kali?
Set, yes. It's very hard to understand. It took me 40 years of misunderstanding to understand that, that is the sequence, yes. Positive. This is verified by Bhanu Maharaj, who explained this to me.
Actually, I have heard in the first canto, there is some slokas, I don't remember the slokas. There I have heard that this Juga, that Dwapar comes first, then Kali. So I have heard that.
Yeah, I thought that too, but Bhanu Maharaj explained to me that overlapping meant overlapping. I asked him 3 times to be clear. No. During COVID, I had the good fortune to associate with Bhanu Maharaj for 10 months because he was stuck in Australia. I think time is up. Do we have any more questions? Are we all good? Jai, all glories to Srila Prabhupada ki.